Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is a Noble Credit Podcast, fourth episode. Today, we're going to be talking about mentorship within the military, within the Navy. I have on with me my buddy Sham. He's going to talk about his experience coming into the military, mentorship that he's experienced, how he thinks mentorship should go, and a little bit about me. I've been in the Navy for 6 years, going on 7. I'm about to leave my current command, go to my next command. And I've had my experience with mentorship in the military, and I think it needs a little bit of work. However, we're going to get the experience of a younger, more junior enlisted sailor. Me, I'm technically, since I'm an E6, I'm considered will be a senior enlisted sailor. So we're going to get his experience, but I'm also going to give you my opinions on it and how I think we could improve it. First, we'll start off with learning a little bit about Sham. Can you kind of tell everyone like where you're from, how long you've been in the military, and just where you come from? What's your experience been like so far?
This is Masood Shamsuddin. I've been in the Navy 3 years, 21 years old. I was born in California, grew up in Dallas, and I enlisted in 2019. So far in the Navy, it's been a ride. I'm not even gonna lie. There's been a lot of personal development, a lot of ups and downs, and I'm just here to share some of that with you guys today.
Okay, so can you describe so far what you've experienced as a junior enlisted sailor, been in for 3 years, at 21 years old? Can you describe the mentorship that the Navy offers?
Truthfully, the Navy mentorship, they provide mentorship, like they assign you a mentorship when you come to a command, or they assign you a mentor when you come to a command. But honestly, it's dependent upon you to find a mentor who suits you and your personality and your goals and your desires and what you want to achieve in life. I don't mean to throw anyone under a bus, but my first mentor we didn't see eye to eye on some things. And so I wouldn't say he was the best mentor for myself, but through seeking out and wanting to be a better sailor myself, I found mentors who align with what I want to do and who are like-minded like myself and who I look up to. So it's there. So.
Yeah, so as far as what the Navy offers in terms of mentorship, once you get to your first command, you're kind of going to be assigned a mentor during those first stages just to get you off to the right foot. Those people aren't necessarily the best. You could end up getting lucky and getting a really good sailor. Like, for example, 5 years ago when I got my first mentor, it didn't really have an impact, right? It was an E5 when I first got to my command. I was an E3, had gotten auto advanced to E4, and that mentor, it was just an on paper thing. But the more you start to move up and move out of the first few weeks of your command, the more you start to realize, okay, this person really isn't all that involved in my career, and they may not even know much about your career. They could give you a mentor that doesn't even do your job. How can you be a mentor to somebody and I'm a CTN. I'm a CTN 1. How can you be my mentor if you're not a CTN? Now, you can be as far as Navy goes, because you need to go outside of your rate sometimes. Rate equals job. You need to go outside of your rate sometimes to see how other jobs are writing about their jobs, because, we're not the only job in the military. There are other jobs, there are other experiences, and you need to leverage those as well in terms of writing evals, see how they write theirs as well. But mentorship is auto assigned, and it's up to you to find mentors that kind of suit you, as what Sham said. But even in doing that, I find it few and far between. So one of the purposes of this podcast is I would like to, instill or elevate leadership within the Navy to, be the leader who you want your leaders to be. And when you look at your current leadership and you're like, do I really want to be like those people? And if the answer is no, what are they missing? And then you just apply that to yourself. And then once you get to that level or at your current level, you just become that. You just work hard to become that, because I actually haven't seen enough, like-minded leadership to, trust anyone with the direction of my career. Now, I'll take people's opinions into consideration, but at times I feel like people don't know enough specifically about, the struggles that you could go through. In our first podcast episode, I talked about, not the first podcast episode with Sham and I, but the first podcast episode that I did, I talked about this instance where I had a mentor in Hawaii, and I was going up for sale of the quarter. I think it might have been the first or second time I ever went up for sale of the quarter. Sale of the quarter is just, it's like employee of the month if you're a civilian right now. And what happens is you go in front of a board of leadership at your command or at your directorate or in your department, and they determine whether or not, based off a series of questions that they ask you and the way your uniform looks, whether or not you deserve to be the commands or that directorate sale of the quarter. And I asked my mentor, who was an established E6, going on chief, and she told me, when you go in there, just tell them you're the best sailor at the command, have moxie, that's it. That's all you got to do. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, okay, bet. And that went, and then I get here and I did that, and my CMC, looked at me like I had three heads. And then my chief at the time looked at me like I had three heads when I did that. And I only did what my mentor told me to do. That advice is not applicable to me. That's what I'm talking about. Like, everyone's advice, you can take it into consideration, but considering, either the way I am or skin color or whatever you want to call it, everyone's advice can apply to you. Someone who has moxie, someone who's confident or arrogant, it might come off as moxie, as like a good thing. With me, it could come off as, extreme arrogance, or someone who you really don't want to represent your command as the face of a junior sailor of the quarter or senior sailor of the quarter. So as far as mentorship goes, you're gonna find it difficult to find mentors that really align with you. So you got to be careful of who you trust. And that's one of the things that in the previous podcast episode, Grady kind of talked about, is being careful who you let mentor you. So is there anything that you would tell younger you to do differently, knowing what you know now, being in the military? And in this episode, because we are two young black males within the military, we're going to talk about race a little bit. Okay. So just fair warning.
What would I tell my younger self? I would say, back to what you said on what Grady was talking about, the other podcast episode, being very selective who you trust and who you decide to be your mentor. Even though people have pure intentions, they may not be the best at giving advice for you. What else would I tell my younger self? This is outside of mentorship, but don't put your happiness into people. Don't let people determine your happiness, basically. When I came in, I didn't have any friends. My first 2 years, really, I was hanging out with civilian contractors that were like 57 years old and stuff. Like, I didn't have really any friends. And it kind of got me depressed, I'm not even gonna lie. But when I realized I can turn my happiness towards something that's more concrete and not something that's, I don't know, flaky like humans, I've found that my life has gotten better. So, yeah.
So as far as putting your happiness into something more concrete, I talk about this in that suicide prevention training video that I did. By the way, go check that video out. Link should be up right now. But I talk about how you get fulfillment out of life, and as a man, you're going to derive uh, most of your sense of satisfaction in life from accomplishing things. So the first thing that I tell you in that suicide prevention video is you need to be in a gym, right? Be in a gym. Also, you need to have an active lifestyle where you're in really good shape. And then that second thing is you need to be good at your job. Why? Because you need to become competent in something that you do for 200 hours a month. You need to become competent in that thing that you do most in a month. And this is going to lead to confidence because now you can speak about it. Now you can lead people. Now you can lead teams. Now people can trust you. And then that confidence is going to elevate you to accomplishing things. And this is how you're going to derive your satisfaction as a male. And I said before, we will discuss race a little bit in this video because we're two young black males. But you want to derive your satisfaction from accomplishing things and not in people the way he said it, because people are what? Flaky. People are fickle. People are going to turn on you. People are going to go their own way. We're in the military where your mentor, you could have a mentor for 1 month and they leave, right? Because, they got out of the military or they transferred. So you can't put your happiness in people. And this goes for really relationships too, and almost especially relationships, because in that suicide prevention training, I talk about the number one cause of suicide amongst men, and that is intimate relationship problems. 62%, right? So that means the rest of the 38% is split up into financial, unemployment, death in the family, drug abuse, things like that. That is a considerable amount of effort or a considerable amount of suicides placed in the direction of intimate relationship issues. And this goes back to what he said about placing your happiness into someone else. So you definitely want to place your happiness in accomplishing things. And so that starts with like being good at your job, because you need to be good at the thing that you do most in a month. And so next question I have is, so we talked about what would you tell your younger self? What would you tell your younger self differently? What about in the fitness realm? Because, about a year ago, you didn't look like this, right? You didn't look like this. So if you could have told yourself something about fitness earlier on, what would it have been?
Probably be more consistent. I was working out probably like 2 days a week, honestly, and it wasn't as consistent as I am now, working out like 6 or 7 days a week. But and diet, eating more, because I was scrawny, like 130 pounds, 5'8", just sickly looking dude. So yeah, honestly, just being more consistent with it.
So being more consistent in the gym. All right, so we did a 9 ways to be successful in the military. I kind of call it how to play the game. And 9 ways. Which of those 9 ways would you say requires the most mentorship?
For me personally, it's job performance. Being thrown into the like intelligence field, especially for me, like not really having to try hard in anything really. It's a lot. And so coming into this command, my first command, it was a lot to learn, and I couldn't have done it by myself without people put in certain spots to like help me out, honestly. Without them, I would probably still learn it, but it would take way longer. And time is of the essence when it comes to like mission impact and all this. So yeah, I believe job performance is the most essential when it comes to mentorship.
So there's an intangible within those 9 ways to be successful that not part of the 9, but it encompasses all of the 9. And in the middle of the video, probably a little bit further toward the end, I say none of this, you can get all the accolades, you can be super successful in the military, but if you're a trash person at the end of the day, like, what does all your accomplishments really mean? And so that's one of the things I would encourage people to do. You know, be a decent individual at the end of the day, because you can be super successful in the military. You can hit all the wickets. You can be really good at your job, really good at fitness, really good. You can be leading sailors, but you need to be a decent person to be able to properly lead people, right? So outside of that 9, it's being a decent individual at the end of the day. That's what I would say. You know, we can't really, you're going to come into the military as you are. So we can't really mentor that into someone. I can't bring Sham over and, try to coach him on how to be a better person. So that kind of comes from within. It comes from learning things. It comes from socializing with individuals, learning, what turns people off from you, and then stop doing those things that turn people off. Or if those things need to be done, like you're in a leadership position and things just need to get done, you have to find better ways to let them know, because if you're on a football team or you're on a basketball team and you're the coach of that team, you can't yell at everyone the exact same way. Yeah, so on a sports team, you can't talk to every player the exact same way. Some coaches can get away with it. Your Greg Popovich, he's going to talk to Tim Duncan the same way that he talks to Tony Parker, the same way he talks to Bruce Bowen, same way he talks to every other player on that team. But most of the time, it's not going to work like that. And this comes down to understanding people's personalities. And this is very evident in the way that you have to talk to certain people. And I'll use a huge example, male versus female. You probably shouldn't, and you don't do this. You never do this. You don't joke around the same exact way that you do with your male friends as you do with your female friends. Like, it's just different. So recognition of this is important to actually becoming a better leader, because now, people have less animosity towards you because of the way that you're coming at them. They always like to say, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, right? It's like, I think it doesn't matter how you said it, but that's my personality. I don't care how it's said. I just care about the facts.
Let me say something on that. When you're receiving, criticism, or just take it as constructive, bro. Like, I hate to say it, like you said, like, everyone's not the same, and not everyone can be, told the same information in the exact same way. But as a man, you kind of have to just take it. Like, stop being soft. I'm sorry.
Stop being soft. Yeah, and I agree with that to an extent, because not everyone's criticism of you is valid. There are some people who I would not trust. I don't trust your opinion. And, we live in a society where we say, oh, everyone's opinion is valid. No, you're not. You're not qualified to have an opinion on certain subjects. So keep that in mind when you're taking people's opinions into account. Only take advice from people who either have what you want, or who are experts in a certain field, or who know what they're talking about, generally speaking. Let's move on to here's a bit of a touchy subject, and I'll phrase it in a way that doesn't get us canceled or anything like that. Should your mentorship be somewhat, or at any metric, to any extent, based on your background? And by background, I mean 2 young black males. You can't necessarily mentor me to be better in life unless you really know where I come from, or unless you really know how, difficult it is. I necessarily have it, and it's hard for someone outside of my race to understand that. Which is why, I did a short video on using the NBA 2K analogy of what it's like to be black in this country. And basically what I said is this: being black in this country is like living life. If you've ever played NBA 2K, My Player or My Career, living life on Hall of Fame difficulty as a 65 overall with the sliders down. Now, you have an opportunity to make it up to a 95 overall, but the deck is stacked against you. It's going to be, not impossible, but it's going to be very difficult for you to get there. Whereas you don't necessarily have those same shackles as someone outside of your race. And this is not an excuse. This is more letting you know how hard you actually have to work, how much better you actually have to be in order to succeed. You know, you cannot do the same things that your counterpart does, because getting into more of like a historical sense, you got to realize most Black people, you know, live in like 5 places in this country, right? Like Atlanta, DC, LA, Chicago, right? And so these areas where Black people would normally reside are socioeconomically, you know, deprived, I would say. So most Black people are going to be coming from these areas, and this is just the way it is. You know, very small percentage of the population, 13% of the population, coming from largely socioeconomically deprived areas, and so you have to deal with that, and then you have to deal with the school systems in these areas, and so you start to realize when you like peel the layer back a little bit, and don't take what I'm saying for face value, actually peel that layer back and realize how it is constructed against you, then it starts to kind of make sense. Oh, okay, I can see how you come off, how you have to have it a little harder coming up. Now, you can get to that level where you don't have it as hard, but you know, you have to try harder. Whereas someone who grows up in the burbs, in the suburbs, you know, they have it a little better off. They're probably going to a better school. Their parental situation is probably a little better. You know, most of the Black community, we grow up without fathers, right? 80% of Black males in prison, you know, are in there because they didn't have a father. So that's just an example of why I think your mentorship can kind of be based on your background, because that understanding is going to lead to actions that necessitate excellence within you that your counterparts may not necessarily have, you know, that same level, have to do that same level in order to succeed. So I want to know what you think about that.
All right, I have 2 answers. First off, having a mentorship that you can be 100% transparent with without holding back is a good thing. Like, you need that. So having someone you can talk about when someone makes, for example, racist comments in the workspace, or it's not going to be understood 100% by someone who's not of African American descent or a Black descent. So having a Black mentor that you can, who's probably been through the same stuff, could probably just understand your situation and help you out and help you navigate through that. And being a 65 overall 2K player, that's really how it is. And what are you gonna do about it, right? Like, you want to be MVP, but you're 65 overall. Like, work on your dribbling skills, practice dribbling, practice shooting, practice your, I don't know, IQ. Like, practice, be well-rounded and level up everything, and you have a shot to potentially being the MVP of the league. It's that simple, if that makes sense. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So simple, not easy. And everyone doesn't know this information, or, you know, most people will probably think, oh, Black people, you guys actually have it pretty easy. In certain ways, yes. It's easier to stand out if you're Black, especially in this community, in the intelligence community. Yes, it's going to be easier to stand out. It's also going to be easier to stand out for the wrong reasons, right? Like, I have a beard. It will be easy to classify me as a shitbag just because I have a beard. However, you actually get to know me, get to know how I work, and you realize, you know, that's not the case. So, and then another thing someone kind of brought to my attention from that video, from that 2K analogy video, is, you know, like affirmative action, things like that. Yes, but you still have those things that I talked about earlier that can hold you back. Like, if you're less educated overall, well, actually, if you come from an environment where education, where it would take exerted efforts to get a better education that your parents are not necessarily willing to take on or can't take on, you know, that's going to hinder you, and That's just the way it is. It is like that for a lot of the Black community. That's just the way it is. And so, yes, you're going to have some advantages. Like I'm going to have an advantage right now being able to stand out. If I excel, I'm going to have an advantage probably over other people in my command because I look a little different, right? So I stand out a little bit more. But you have to make it so that you stand out for the right reasons. And so with that, it's going to take a little bit more effort on your part in order to be able to do that. So one of the last things that I wanted to touch on is what can we do better? And I'm going to get Sham's opinion on this. What can we actually do better tangibly to mentor junior sailors better?
You have to want to be better as a junior sailor. I mean, the Navy, it's pretty easy to be babied in the military. Like everyone tells you what to do, this, that, this, that. But you have to seek out and actually go and be an adult. And I want to do this. So who is the right guy to get this? Like you have to do that. So it's part of it. Part of it's on you. But the Navy could, I would say, for when we do career development boards, actually take in what the sailor is saying. So for my first CDB, when I first got to the command, I told my leadership that I am a reflection of my environment. If people are, can you bleep this out? If people are fucking around, like I'm a fuck around, right? Most of the time, like I'm not even gonna lie. But if people are like head down doing work, I would strive and I would do my work and I would be good. They didn't take that in consideration and they gave me a horrible mentor, and it kind of messed me up in my first couple years or first year kind of. So yeah.
Okay, so as far as what I think we can do better to mentor junior sailors, Sham's right. You have to want to be mentored. So you have to want to take that information in. And I've had experiences with sailors who, after the fact, have come back and told me that they see me as somewhat of a role model. And me just operating the way I've been operating, I didn't think about myself like that, but they saw me that way. So it obviously means I was doing something right without doing it, without trying. So I would say become the person. Like mentorship is going to be becoming the person that people can look up to, that people can try to aspire to be like, that people can kind of emulate. And that's going to be mentorship in and of itself, because then people are going to come to you to be their mentor. Then you're going to want those people to mentor you. So keep excelling in your career, doing it the right way, staying a decent person, doing those 9 things that are going to get you ahead. Because in those 9 things, we go over everything. We go over job performance. We go over collateral duties. We go over physical fitness. We go over awards that you need to be getting. And we go over volunteering. We go over education. Everyone may not want to volunteer for things. Everyone may not want to, do education. But the most well-rounded sailor needs to be doing every single one of those things. It is not hard to volunteer. Okay. And part of the socialization piece that I mentioned from the suicide prevention video, and before I get on to that, so I'm an affiliate with a company called MLO, and we have these nice shoes. If you want these really nice shoes, they're super comfortable, affordable, and they look really clean. If you want these shoes, make sure you check the link in the description below for the referral link. The most important thing that I've said earlier in this video is like, you need to, it doesn't matter if you do all the things right. If you're not a good person at the end of the day, like do people think that you're a good, decent individual? So you can't really mentor people how to be better people, because that's just going to come from within. That's going to come from your environment, how you grew up. But all you can do is really be the leader that people kind of want to be. And so if you're not in those leadership positions yet, you need to be striving to be in those leadership positions, because sometimes it's going to be up to you. You kind of need to be your own mentor. You need to be the guy that learns all the stuff. And it's not okay. It's not right for you to have to learn everything and fail first or fail forward when someone else has already done it, but sometimes you just have to, because there's not going to be another person at your current command that can guide you correctly. And one of the things that I would want, more leaders to do is become more well-rounded in understanding, their sailors, especially within, such a small subset of the community as Black males within the intelligence community. The leaders in these communities need to understand the different struggles, the different obstacles that you're going to go through as a young Black male in these communities, as a young Black male moving into corporate environments, moving into these very professional settings, trying to succeed. You need to understand that. And this is going to impact the way that you kind of coach them, kind of guide them, because going back to the way that I said about Coach Greg Popovich, talking to Tim Duncan, talking to Tony Parker, talking to Bruce Bowen, talking to that last guy on the bench who was at D Brown or whatever. While you can't talk to everyone the exact same, you have to coach different individuals a little differently. You got to make them tick a little differently. And what's going to be important to me in my career is not necessarily going to be important to Sham or to someone else. So you got to find those things that makes people tick. And fortunately for someone who's African American, you're kind of going to have a better idea of what makes those people tick, right? Like for me, on average, the Black people that you meet, they're generally going to come from backgrounds with, less socioeconomic mobility, right? So money is very important to you as a Black person. So if that sailor is trying to get out, now you need to, as a leader, you need to probably be guiding them towards how to set yourself up for the outside world in the best possible way to make you the most money that helps your family out, because that is very important to us, which someone, and you want to generally like doing your job, but someone who comes more from money doesn't necessarily have that concern, or doesn't necessarily have that thing that drives them. Money is a real driver a lot of the times, right? So mentorship is going to be about finding those things that make people tick, understanding different personalities, because as a leader, you have to talk to people a little bit differently. And then going from there, being able to have an impact on them, trying to be a role model to them. So I'm giving it to you from a person who wants to be mentored and the mentors themselves. Mentors, you need to become the leaders that people want to be like. Someone who's being mentored, I wouldn't necessarily count on the mentorship to be there. What I would do is I would start super early, start failing forward fast, so that you become that leader off the jump. Now you're gonna need those people to guide you, but they're not gonna always be there. So you got to take it upon yourself, this personal responsibility with trying to become a leader, trying to become a mentor, but also trying to be someone who is susceptible to mentorship. So as far as overall mentorship in the military, it's okay, it's emphasized, but it's not the level where it should be. And one of the things that I hope to accomplish with this podcast is I hope there's someone out there that sees this and goes, you know what, he's right. I need to become the leader that people start looking up to. And how do I do that? Okay, I need to know my sailors better. Okay, I need to know what makes each person tick. Okay, I can't yell at every single one of my sailors now. I have to talk a little bit differently to get my point across to a certain person, because they're not going to be as receptive to it. And we can sit back and complain and say, everyone's just soft, right? But you can't really say that when you're trying to convey information to someone. You can't call them soft to their face. You can call them soft behind their back, but you can't call them that to their face and say, you're soft for not understanding the information. No, you have to phrase it in a way that they understand it. So I'm talking to a specific group of people. I'm talking to people who, are going to take it, like we did an episode with Hutchins, and he's one of the go-getters, right? He's one of the people that you didn't have to put a battery in his back. It's already there. So this is more for those people, but at the same time, We want to get to the people who need the battery in the back, and this is that. So this brings us. Oh, any last thoughts, Sham, on anything that I just said?
No, I think you hit the ball on that. Yeah, basically form relationships with your sailors. It doesn't have to be, oh, what you doing this weekend? Let's go out. But professional relationships where you know what gives this guy his, I don't know, energy. What gives this guy his want to do work. Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I like being in the military, right? Because you can have that lifestyle effect on someone, whereas outside of this camaraderie, it's less expected, so it's less tolerated. Now you're getting involved in your people's lives as civilians. Like in the military, it's expected, and you have to do it, right? Or you don't have to do it, but in order to be the best leader, yeah, you got to do it. Okay, last but not least, we'll talk about getting your mentorship on paper. Usually at your commands, there's going to be a form that you fill out, and get it on paper. I guess you don't need to do this, but it's an option for you, because it just documents that someone is your mentor. Okay, so as far as overall mentorship within the military, it could be better, and I would like to see it become better by doing the things that I kind of said in this podcast. Becoming the leader that you wish your leaders were, cultivating relationships, like you said, cultivating relationships, not relationships. Cultivating relationships with your sailors so that you know them better, and then you need to be well-rounded, because you're going to need to speak to each of those 9 things that I said about being successful in the military: job performance, physical fitness, volunteer. Go ahead.
Being well-rounded. I'm gonna just give y'all some example. So, would you rather have a 10 in job performance, 0 in character, 0 in volunteering, 0 in command involvement, or would you have a 6 in job performance, a 6 in character, a 6 in volunteer? Like, that's a more well-rounded sailor, and that's more beneficial to the Navy. No one wants the top job performer who's a person overall. Like, no one wants that. And it doesn't take a lot to hit all the little marks of just being a well-rounded sailor. So that's what I got to say about the being well-rounded.
And that also goes into the socialization piece, which I kind of wanted to touch on a future podcast episode. It's like the command involvement piece. This has to do with socialization, and in that suicide prevention video training that I did, make sure you go check that out. I talk about that extensively because suicide is a social issue. The CDC described it as an epidemic. All right, so it's a social responsibility, right? Getting involved in your command satisfies a key socialization piece for you, so that you can actually be fulfilled by having other humans around you who at least like, admire, and respect you enough, to be in your presence, right? So that's huge for not only suicide prevention, but command involvement, being that well-rounded sailor. So obviously, I want you to be 10s in every category, but I want you to also be so well-rounded that you are a 6 in every category. There's some categories that are just less important. Like, I'm going to do what it takes I'm going to volunteer, but I'm also not going to make that my number one priority. It's never going to be my number one priority because I want to do other things. I want to do things like this. I want to do things like have the podcast going, have the YouTube channel going, education, things like that. And too much volunteer work, trying to go for an MOVSM, a Military Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal, would get in the way of that. So I'm not saying that you need to be a 10 and volunteer. You just need to know enough to be able to coach a junior sailor on how to navigate these realms. And so if we can fix that issue, within the Navy, not fix, but help that issue. We're not fixing every single issue within the military. We're trying to bring light to the mentorship within the military, identify how, as young black males, we're actually affected slightly differently and we have to go about it slightly differently in order to be successful. And then offering tangible solutions to it. And those tangible solutions, as I stated, you need to become the leader that you wish your leaders were. So you need to know your sailors. And I've touched on this so many times already, but, for fear of being a broken record, you get the picture. All right, so this is going to bring us to the end of this podcast episode. Make sure you like the video, please. It costs you nothing. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell because we're going to be uploading more videos within the next few weeks. Every week. I'm trying to get videos out every single week. And then also run the credit card side of the channel where I talk about finances, VA loans, interest rate reduction, refinance loans, credit scores, all that stuff, investing, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, CSP, everything finances to help those in the military and those outside of the military. That brings us to the end of this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Wait, what were your thoughts on this episode?
10 out of 10 recommend. Share. People need to hear this.
Yeah, share the video with your friends. And with that being said, we out.